Hello, everybody. I am What If Universe, and it's been a while since I've interviewed fan manga artists. The last one I did was Mr. Pocolo, which that was several months ago. But anyways, I have the author of Dragon Ball Infinity with me, and if you want to say hi, you can.
What's up?
Anyways, I have a few questions I'm gonna ask him, similar to what I did with Mr. Pocolo, just to get to know him a bit. So we're first gonna start off with how did you actually get into art?
Well, I've been drawing since I was a little kid. Drawing was like my first passion. Uh, I had a little art desk when I was a kid. I used to draw all the time. But when I was younger, I was really into the Pokemon anime and manga and the Dragon Ball anime and manga. And I just really liked that style. I had a friend who would sit and design Pokemon, and it was just really fun. It was just something I really enjoyed to do when I was a kid. I've never considered myself like a really talented artist. It's just something I enjoy. But later on, I started playing music, and I can play by ear, so I kind of have an advantage there that I didn't have with drawing. So I focused on that for years. I've recorded probably hundreds of tracks. I focused for a really long time on music. So in that way, I'm pretty artistically well rounded. But the reason I got help for Dragon Ball Infinity is because I wanted it to look amazing. And Copy Workshop, the people that I use to help me with my manga are amazing. Like, I couldn't ask for a better art team. I've always preferred like the Eastern style of cartoons over the Western style because it's not so silly, and it's something that it's just easier to take seriously, and that's what I like about it. So
That's
that's
understandable.
yeah,
And
that's what got me into drawing that kind of stuff because watching that stuff growing up, I always thought it was really cool, and I guess I just got into it about how anybody else did, just out of general interest.
I guess to talk more about music, what types of music do you actually like?
It depends on what I'm doing and what mood I'm in. When I'm writing, a lot of times I just put on a lo-fi hip hop station. Like they have those lo-fi stations on YouTube, and they're just really chill, simple beats that have like jazz chord progressions, and it's just it's something to listen to when you're just trying to relax and ease your mind, and it helps you think clearer. You know, but if I'm driving or I'm kind of pumped up or something like that, I like to listen to a lot of like '90s, like new metal, like a lot of the stuff that has DJs in it and stuff like that. I like some old '90s, '80s metal too, but here lately I've been listening to a lot of, like '90s stuff with DJs in it, like Linkin Park and Head P and stuff like that. But I like all kinds of music. Like I went through a bunch of different phases in my life where I liked one type of music for a really, really, really long time, and then I'll move on to another. Like for a while, I really liked reggae and Bob Marley, and then I really liked Jimi Hendrix and the blues. Then I really liked Dimebag Darrell from Pantera and like that really heavy, like groove metal sound. And then as I got older, I started where I was playing guitar and I was listening to the same music for so long. I started getting tired of hearing the same thing. So I started going and looking for stuff that was different. And that's what led me to lo-fi. It's just different. The chord progressions are different. So I listened to that a lot. And then as far as like guitar stuff and metal stuff, here recently I've been listening. I don't know if you know who Guthrie Govan is, but he's a French guitar virtuoso. I listen to a lot of his stuff, and Misha Mansour from Bulb. I don't know if you know, or from Periphery. I don't know if you know who that is, but I listen to a really wide, broad spectrum of music.
Yeah, we actually have pretty similar music interest tastes. Like, I listen to lo-fi a lot when I'm editing videos or editing my audio. It's really nice and chill to
Yep.
listen to.
Yeah, it really helps. It really does.
I'm in a vaporwave a little bit. Like, it's alright, but I used to like it a lot more like a couple years ago when it was first kicking off.
Right.
I do like metal as well, but I prefer instrumental or I don't know, I guess
Well,
more like punk bands, I guess.
for a long time, it was like guitar solos, I think. You know what I mean? Because it's like, if you look at them on a sheet of music, the composition for a lot of them is so genius. The level of genius that goes into it is just severely underrated. So for a long time, that's what I was into, and that's what I was studying. I was studying like the greatest guitar solo composers. But as I got older, I started just appreciating like the overall songs, like the mixture of everything together. Instead of just focusing on that one part of the song that's composed in an interesting way. I started looking at songs that were just genuinely composed in a very interesting way. It piqued my interest, in my old age. I've heard a lot in my lifetime, so I guess like my palate as far as music just gets harder to satisfy as I get older.
So anyways, I guess to go back to more generalized questions, do you have any favorite food or like style, like Mexican, Thai,
Yes.
Chinese,
I love Japanese takeout. I mean, I love that. But my favorite food, hot wings. Any hot wings that uses the cayenne base pepper, I love. It's like my favorite taste in the world, that cayenne pepper taste. That's my favorite. And, if it's cooked the right way, it's my favorite food. It has to be more than just that, but a hot wings with a good cayenne pepper sauce is my favorite, hands down.
Yeah, I like cayenne a little bit. I put in a few things I make, honestly. It's a pretty useful spice in all honesty. I put in like guacamole and like several things.
Yeah, I just love the fun of it. It's just like, whenever I was younger, I was scared to try hot wings for a long time. And my younger brother, he'd tease me about it. He'd eat them. We'd go to Pizza Hut. He'd eat them right in front of me and he'd tease me. And then one day I tried them and it changed my life. I loved them from then on.
Yeah.
He eats them with ranch. I don't. I just eat them straight up. Like, I don't really like ranch that much, so that's where we differ on that. He's always been a big ranch guy, and I just like the taste of the hot wings.
Yeah. If you ever go to Papa John's, I like their like garlic butter wings. Those are really.
I love Papa John's pizza. That, like, it's not something I can get all the time because there's not one close by. But anytime I'm around, that's where I'm going.
Yeah. Anyways, I move on to the next question here. What is your favorite anime, by the way?
Well, I love to laugh. Okay, that's my favorite thing in the world, is watching something funny. And that's why Dragon Ball appealed to me so much, because I like its humor as much as I appreciate the action and the creative concepts. But it's just hard to compare anime. That's whenever somebody asks me like what my favorite anime is, I always bring up this point. Where Dragon Ball is sort of this goofy comedy sci-fi, like mixed with martial arts. Cowboy Bebop is like a drama-based, mystery thriller type thing, and I love both of those shows for what they are. So it's hard for me to like just say. It's just like it's like comparing genres and stuff like that. As far like anime is the word anime is it covers a very wide spectrum. So it's hard for me to just like clarify what's my top favorite, because I like different anime. But Dragon Ball will always have like a really special place in my heart, because it was like the first anime that really got me into everything else. Right now, I've been watching Demon Slayer, and I'm kind of upset that it ended where it did. And I'm not really crazy about the idea of them continuing with the movie, but I don't know. I'm excited for the future of anime. There's a lot going on right now. Like the Castlevania anime on Netflix is awesome. There's just a bunch of really cool anime that's coming out. And it seems like the anime culture is being, it's growing, and people are starting to appreciate it more. So I'm pretty hopeful for the future of anime, but Dragon Ball is what started it all for me.
Yeah, what's nice about the Castlevania anime and Cis Harmonious, which is also made by the same animation studios, that they're based in like America, which is a really huge change of how well they're doing.
That makes me feel really good about what I'm doing, because like eventually I'm working on my own thing right now. I've been writing on it this entire time. Whenever I'm not writing on Dragon Ball Infinity, I'm writing on my original series, and to see that happen makes me really hopeful. Makes me think maybe I have a chance of having something get done, because for a long time it didn't really seem like that was possible.
Yeah, I think when you have like anime industries open up here, there's a lot of possibility for that's going on. Like, I do know that both of them are more adult oriented, but I could see something that's more like lenient hope.
Right.
But that's just my personal opinion. And anyways, about the question itself, there's actually a deep meaning behind it, because my idea is I use that to see how people judge animation itself. Because it's a pretty interesting, it's an interesting question if you think about it.
It really is. It really is, because I mean, it's really hard to judge one anime from another. That's why anytime anybody asks me that question, just kind of throw me off. Ugh. All these anime start rushing through my head. I'm like, oh gosh, I love this about this one. And I love that. It's a hard question to answer for me.
That's understandable. What led you to post your art on Twitter and everything?
Blackscape. That's all him. I had made a Twitter account years ago, and he talked me into actually using it like last year sometime, so we could talk about the manga and stuff. And I'm glad I did, because his support it's honestly been everything. I've had a lot of YouTubers support me, but Mondo Cool and Blackscape were the first to really show a lot of interest, and that made me feel pretty good. It made me feel pretty good about the manga, because, I'm really self-critical, I'm constantly checking over my notes, constantly checking over my story. I'm constantly doing research. I'm constantly trying to make sure everything's airtight. So when I see anybody get excited about Dragon Ball Infinity, it makes me feel really good, because, it makes me feel like all the effort was worth it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like with content that I make, it's interesting. The origin of me, it's I tried to pitch a script to Plus Ultraman. He said, in his update video, if you want to make what ifs, just start doing them yourselves. And that's what I started doing. And I slowly over time just got the support from a lot of different what if channels and Dragon Ball YouTubers, because I guess it's my character.
The Dragon Ball YouTuber community is awesome. They really are. I can't think of many people that I don't like, honestly.
I think there's people I disagree with, but people I
that's always
go out against, no. I can't think of anybody.
Right. I mean, I look forward to seeing their interactions on Twitter and stuff every day. I just enjoy it. It's just like a big group of friends, and they're constantly, goofing around with each other, and it's fun to see, and it's fun to be a part of.
Yeah, that's for sure. And leading up to that question, how did you learn that your manga is actually picking up an audience?
Well, Mondo Cool was the first to actually ask me to cover Dragon Ball Infinity, and he's been he was the first domino in a set to really start spreading the word. But I really noticed it started to take off when I found a video by Expert Games that had over 1 million views, and then I checked my Twitter, and the followers started piling up from all the YouTubers covering my stuff, and it gave me a lot of confidence and drive to keep going. Honestly, when I first started, it was just for fun. And I didn't really plan on continuing unless everybody showed genuine interest. And it's kind of overwhelming sometimes, but I thrive off of it, because if you're not held to a standard, then you're just that's one thing the Dragon Ball community is really good about, is keeping people in check and being like, hey, this is awesome and everything. What about this? This is inaccurate. And most people don't really do it out of they're not trying to be negative, or most people are actually just trying to help you out, and when I noticed that a lot of people were coming to me for advice about their stories and stuff like that, that's whenever I was like, okay, I've pretty much established myself and it definitely makes me feel good.
Yeah, as someone else who's also a writer, it's interesting when I do Dragon Ball what ifs. My best example I'd say right now is the one where I collabed with Mondo Cool and Dragon Ball Dad, which is the what if where Goku remains single. It's a quite interesting one.
That. Yeah.
It's funny because people in the comment section have two things that showed up for a little bit. It's oh, is Goku gonna marry someone else? It's I can't let that happen, because the whole point is to see how far the series would go if he just chose to never marry someone.
Well, Chi-Chi was a very special case too. She straight up tricked him, and Goku. It's not that she necessarily tricked him. I guess I don't want to put it there. She kind of did, but at the same time, Goku still made the decision to be you know what? I did make that promise to you. Fine, let's get married. He saw that Chi-Chi really cared about him, and that pushed him. I don't think that would have happened with anybody else. Maybe Bulma, because she's so feisty, but I just don't see it happen with anybody else. Maybe Bulma could have hit him up before Vegeta ever showed up. I mean, there's another what if.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. Yeah, I think it's neat because someone told me like the logic's like, oh, it doesn't make
I mean, you
sense.
gotta admit, you're cutting out, by the way. I don't know. I didn't know if you knew that.
I believe it'll just be on your end. It won't be on mine.
Okay. I don't know if you noticed, but like Bulma hints around that she's attracted to Goku a bunch of times in old Dragon Ball. It's almost as if Toriyama was kind of trying to set them up at first, or at least show that, I don't know, that Bulma was feisty, I guess. But there was potential there at one point.
Well, I think when
So it's not-
Nisco X did his series up to a certain point, I think that was the best exploration of that topic.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I need to check that out.
Because it's funny, someone asked me, it's like, are you going to ship them together? It's like, watch Moscow X's video. And it's like, oh, thanks. I didn't know he did that.
Yeah, I definitely need to check that out because the probability is pretty high. So I definitely need to check that out.
Like, even though I would think about, certain points don't make sense, it's like, at the end of the day, it's a what if. It's dependent on who the writer is.
Right.
And if there is an actual logical fallacy, most likely they'll fix it if they're a good writer.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you can ride the power of the pen. A lot of people underestimate it. They really do.
Like, someone said I skipped a year in the time skip, and I was like, you're right, I did. So I covered it in the second part. It's quite interesting to do videos, because if you're doing like a fan manga or something, you could like update a page or something, but with this, it's already out there. You can't really take it down and put it back up. So you're left with your mistakes out there, you know?
Right. I mean, it's the same thing with fan manga. You know, you can put a lot of work into your story, and then one piece of information can contradict the entire thing. So, I mean, it's the same thing. So, yeah, I know what that's like for sure. Like, that's why I'm constantly like checking myself. I'm constantly like I'm on the steering wheel, you know, readjusting where I'm going, because like when I first started writing Dragon Ball and Fitty, it was an entirely different. Like, I started writing it probably when Xenoverse 1 was out, and it was a lot more about that and Demigra, time travel and Cronulla, stuff like that, which I still plan on getting to that kind of stuff, but you know, he evolved as a character because of like new information and stuff like that. So like if you're a fan manga writer, I definitely this is some advice. I definitely wouldn't what you're doing, because you know, you never know like what kind of opportunity you're gonna miss out on if you didn't just wait on some new information. Something can hit you and be inspirational and make your story way better than what it would have been before.
Yeah, what ifs, when you're doing YouTube and stuff, especially in its current climate, you're always in the mindset you want to get something done first, you know?
Right. There is kind of this competition.
It's like you want to get this what if out first before someone else, even though it sucks. But a good example I have of this is when I did a series on Majin Gohan on the Anime Royalty channel, which is a network I'm a part of. And basically, the what if, in my opinion, is actually one of the worst videos I've done. But I was happy some other creator that goes by the name of Tylern, he actually did his own version. He actually made it better.
Yeah, it does feel good to inspire people. It does. I just had somebody hit me up today and told me that I inspired them to create a backstory for their character. It does feel good when somebody comes to you.
Well, he didn't come to me necessarily, but I'm just happy that he did it.
Right.
Because for people who want to see a better story, that's what I'm going to recommend in all honesty, because even though I made something, it doesn't mean it's the best version of it.
Right. I mean, that's still awesome that you inspired the idea, though. You know what I mean? Like,
well, a more higher technicality, Moscow X actually did it first.
Oh,
he did it
yeah,
in He did it in a what if Nappa became good part 5 or something, which is really interesting. You know, it's like
yeah.
When I was looking up, like, did someone do this before me? Because before I make my video, I usually search if someone's done it. And then I found this fan art that was done. It was Majin Gohan, and it's like, oh, he's wearing a black outfit, he has an M, I wonder what it's from, and I found Moscow X's thumbnail. It's like, oh, perfect. So that means I know who did it first, and I had to see what context it was done in. And since it was like a what if and a what if, that's when I realized, is it worth giving credit to someone at that point? 'Cause that's where it comes hard.
Right.
Because technically it's what if Nappa turned good, which led up to the events of Gohan becoming Majin.
I really like how Mr. Pokemon now. I really like what he's doing. I'm really enjoying Mr. Pokemon. Like I was saying earlier, I love to laugh. Every chapter he comes out with, I'm rolling. I just really dig his work.
Yeah, Marco, he's really good with Mr. Pocolo. Like, it's interesting. Like, I would have never thought of that idea as a what if ever. I really wouldn't. But somehow we thought of it, and it's probably one of my favorite fan mangas that's out there.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. And it just keeps getting better, Yeah, he's doing great.
But I guess, speaking more about fan manga, do you have any plans to make other fan mangas after Dragon Ball Infinity?
I mean, I'll be lucky to make it past Dragon Ball Infinity. I mean, honestly, it's broken down into 3 arcs. Okay, so like right now we're on Planet Nairu, which Nairu means Nile. It's just Japanese for the Nile. So the planet's just named after the Egyptian Nile. So it's broken down into 3 arcs, and one's basically just like him being on Beerus's planet. Then one's him not being on Beerus's planet, and then the 3rd arc is the conclusion. So if I can make it past all that, I probably won't do any more fan manga. I'll work with other people on their projects. I'll help write. But honestly, after I'm finished doing what I'm doing, I want to write on my original series and drop. I'm using what I'm doing right now I'm using Dragon Ball Infinity as practice almost to just like really get my brain running and work on my original series. So after I'm done with Dragon Ball Infinity, which will probably be, years from now, but when I'm done, probably move to the series. That's my plan.
Yeah, I recently saw Marco's original series that he posted on Twitter. I forget the name of the thing at the moment because I haven't got the chance to look at it.
How have I not seen that? I'm going to have to look into that too.
You know what? I'm going to look it up right now. Way I can let everybody know what that is.
Yes, do that because I'm very interested.
Okay, it's called Il éclaire les bleus. I believe that's what it's called. I'll send you the tweet where you can go look at it if you want to.
Yeah, I'll do that.
But yeah, it looks pretty interesting for sure.
Man, like, I'm really helpful for like the creative minds. Like, I almost feel like I'm like a modern modern renaissance. I feel like we're in this like new age, technological driven new age renaissance. It's like art is so prominent. Everybody's really expressing themselves, coming together and working together and making some awesome things. I think people really do take for granted like the age that we're in as far as this. I find it very fascinating when I get on Twitter and I see like all these people like collaborating, just putting out like gorgeous artwork. It's just something I look forward to seeing at this point.
Yeah, that's always something interesting because with me, like, I don't consider myself as a creative person, but I think once you change certain elements, that's when it starts becoming your own thing versus the original property.
Right. Well, that's part of the reason I wanted to like go so back into in Dragon Ball Infinity is because it's really hard. I mean, don't get me wrong, they could contradict Beerus's backstory that I've made for him like that. They could literally destroy everything I've written within a few minutes. But trying to write around something that far in the past is a lot easier than just trying to write around what's going on right now. It gives you so much breathing room. And when I started the story, I wanted to be able to create a set of characters. I wanted to let Tommen have his own Z fighters. I wanted him to have his own little crew, and going back into the past, and being on a completely different new planet gave me the opportunity to do that. I don't know. I just feel like it's something you don't see very often. You don't see people trying to take advantage, like wiping the slate clean. I like to see. I mean, you can write around the series and still do something completely original. You can write based on the format of the series and make it seem as close to the original product as possible, and still have like a whole new set of characters, a whole new planet. It's not impossible. Like if we would have seen, if we went back to the 90s and we would have seen the Pride Troopers, we would never have guessed that was a legitimate thing. Like, the Dragon Ball has evolved so much. What you can do with it now, and like what you can do, like writing around it and stuff, like that's one thing that's really ridiculously underrated about Super, is it added so much fuel to the fire of like creative concepts, like stuff you could play with. There's like so many things, somebody could just take and do something with now compared to what there used to be. I think that's something that people really take for granted from Super. like the gods, the new hierarchy, the multiverse, and then you got like Super Dragon Ball Heroes, where you've got the different timelines. There's just so much you can do with Dragon Ball, and I think that's the reason that like Dragon Ball fan manga is really prominent, because, and that's something else that's underrated about Dragon Ball in general, is they just give you a lot to work with. Like there's just so many different things you can just take and play with. And that's another thing I love about Dragon Ball. It's something I think is very underrated about.
Yeah, I think it's neat with Heroes that it gets a lot of hate sometimes, but to me, it reminds me a lot of like Infinite Crisis, where you had all those worlds in the Marvel universe like colliding against each other. Like that's what it reminds me of somewhat.
The American audience was never meant to enjoy it to its fullest extent. Like it's impossible for us to enjoy it to its fullest extent, because we can't just go to the arcade and find out the context of what's going on. Like we have to rely on fan translated manga from Dragon Ball Heroes to even get an idea, or dialogue to even get an idea of what we're doing. And I think that's something a lot of people look over. You know, we're not meant to know everything that's going on. It's a Japanese exclusive thing. And you can do some digging and find some context. And if you do that, the story becomes a lot more interesting. Don't get me wrong, a lot of the scaling is wacky. A lot of the stuff they do is wacky, especially with the anime. But if you look at like actual creative concepts, stuff like that, it's very interesting. The Dragon Room does some really creative and interesting things with Super Dragon Ball Heroes.
Because to me, if you see it, it's like a visual representation of like what a what if would look like if it was official.
Well, I mean, Few is basically just us, the fans, you know, all of us people who love to put the characters in death battle. That's what Few is. I mean, he just goes to different timelines and he just throws people together to fight for fun of it, you know? Like, I always kind of felt like Zeno kind of represented like the child demographic of Dragon Ball. Just like how easily they can be swayed on a character. Like in the Tournament of Power, whenever Zeno's like, Goku's awesome, and then they'll switch over to Jiren and they'll be like, oh, Jiren's even awesome. You know, like it just, whenever all that was going on, I just got this sense of like, they're basically just like trying to portray Zeno as like the childlike, the new childlike demographic that would be watching Dragon. Just like how easily they could be swayed on characters like that. Like, oh, you know what? This character is not interesting enough. It's just a race. You know, the fans do that all the time. I don't know. I find all that stuff very interesting.
Well, that erase measure could easily equivalent to when I got rid of Chi-Chi in my What If Goku Stayed Single, somewhat.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the Tournament of Power can kind of be looked at as a measuring stick to see what sells. If you really think about it, I mean, look at what they did with all the universes. They all represent different trends in anime. You know, different themes, and and they were testing the waters with the audience that watches Dragon Ball. They pretty well got the data they needed. You know, like it's actually what they do as far as marketing goes. It's actually really underrated. Like I notice some moves they make sometimes. Like, you're so sly. They're very underrated as business and marketing.
I guess to talk a bit more about the Dragon Ball franchise as like a whole, like if you had the ability to like rewrite a saga within like the Dragon Ball franchise, which one would you choose?
Honestly, I don't have a huge problem with any of the writing and any of the arcs. My only problem with most of the series is that they don't explain things well enough. So if I was going to do anything, I would probably just go through and explain things better, to be honest. Like, I think if they went through and they explained things a little bit more in detail throughout each arc, that it would really help cover the holes, you know, and the criticisms that people have. I just feel like, you know, I always see people on the internet question something about an arc, and then somebody who just noticed something, you know, not because the show explained it, but because they indirectly showed it to us, you know, then they have to have it explained to them. It's like, I'm not trying to like insult anybody's attention span, but it's just like, I see that happen a lot. You know, people miss things. And I just feel like Dragon Ball, if anything, if it needs anything, it just needs to be more clear with how its concepts work.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. Like, there are so many interesting things that happen. It's like, I think...
Well, for example, like, most people don't understand the Black Arc. at all. Like the amount of people I've seen on the internet who prefer Goten Black to Goku Black is crazy. And to want to prefer that over Goku Black shows that you don't understand the arc. The entire point of the arc is, poetic justice. Trunks is the reason that Goku was alive. Trunks was the reason that Goku was alive to be strong enough to compete with the gods to get God Ki. He was the reason that Goku was alive and allowed to piss off Masu and, tempt him into taking Goku's body. So when Goku Black went to Future Trunks' timeline, he found out that Future Zamasu, that Trunks was responsible for all that, and they together created the Zero Mortals plan because they blamed Trunks for bringing Goku back, and taking Goku's body and terrorizing was like a means of revenge for bringing Goku back to begin with. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand about that work. They don't understand like how poetic it's supposed to be that Goku Black is the one that's coming in and destroying his timeline. Like, they just don't understand that. And I feel like because the show glanced at that point so quickly, that's the reason that happened. That's the reason there's so many people who are confused and don't understand, what the arc is about, because they go over that very vaguely and very quickly.
Yeah, that's highly understandable with that.
Like, the whole arc is very underrated. Like, I feel like, a lot of people that don't like the arc just don't notice that about the arc. You know what I'm saying? They don't notice that Zamasu looked at the mortals like rats, like just like new,
Then
annoyances.
Again, he chooses to use a mortal to start the
Zero
Mortal
I saw
plan.
that meme. That cracked me up.
Alright, so my plan is when everyone's gone, well, I need to take out myself now.
Well, he said that the point was taking Goku's body. The reason he did it was because he was using Goku's body as a vehicle to punish the gods and show them their mistake in allowing Goku to become so strong. So they do give a reason too, but it is still kind of funny that he hates mortals so much, and then he goes so far out of his way to steal a mortal's body. Like, it is pretty hilarious to think about. And then, like, the ending of the Black Arc, people hate that. Like, people hate the ending of it, and it's kind of understandable because it happened really quickly, and it took us all by surprise. But people think it's like this, like, it makes no sense. But you can go back and you can read interviews with Toriyama, and he explains that you can get energy given to you by people cheering for, and if you watch the end of it, they're all cheering him on. They're all, they create an energy ball above him. He's actually not even making the spirit ball. It just like pops up, and he like flies into it and just takes advantage of all the energy that's given to him. But another thing, Toriyama has an interview about how increasing your ki can come from like courage and right-mindedness and stuff like that. So it was the Black Arc at the end of it was a battle of ideals, and the reason Trunks won was because his ideals were correct over Zamasu. That's the entire point of the final exchange, is Trunks basically proving Zamasu's ideals completely false and wrong. And him being so right-minded and so courageous, made him strong enough to handle it. And it's something a lot of people overlook about that. I just feel like it's a very underrated arc. And I feel like a lot of Dragon Ball fans overlook a lot of information. And if I was to rewrite an arc, they wouldn't have to worry about that. You know what I mean? They would know for a definite fact why things happened. They wouldn't have to sit and wonder. Like, the arcs have so much more potential if you actually explain them right. Like, you lose your audience when you don't explain things to the fullest extent, because then they're just left wondering, what was that? What happened? And that's a lot of the problem that I see amongst the fan bases. They just don't, the show itself glances and goes over things so quickly that people just like, what? But that's nothing new. Dragon Ball's always. That's another thing, is I feel like people don't hold all the shows to the same standard either. Anytime somebody starts bashing GT or Super, I'm like, hey, they all had problems.
But yeah, I guess we shall move a bit more to some more fan manga questions. So what actually inspired you to make Dragon Ball Infinity?
Well, I had a lot of support, honestly. Like, I was in this little. I'm a member of this little Facebook like group chat where we all like talk about our stories and stuff like that. I got a few buddies. I dropped my ideas on. Whoa! They loved it, and these guys aren't easily impressed. So that's really what pushed me to take the plunge and start having it drawn, all that stuff, and then everything else came naturally. Like Copy Workshop, they've been super supportive. Like basically, if it wasn't for the support of everyone around me, it probably wouldn't have made it as far as it did. That's basically what got it started. It's just the support of everybody wanting to help me and encouraging me and, building my confidence and making me my ideas. That's really what's driven the entire thing.
Yeah, that makes sense, because a lot of things happen where you're just having like conversation, you show something, it's like, oh, that's a great idea. Should extend it,
Right. And I had that happen a lot. And shout out to Lance, Efren, everybody in that group chat, because Dragonball Infinity wouldn't have happened without you. So.
And what tools do you actually use to make the fan manga?
Well, Anath and Gara do the majority, but I know what they use. They use they ink traditionally G pens, Sakura microns, Staedtler fine liner, and brush pens, and then like when they're doing tones and lettering, stuff like that, they use the shop. So it's pretty standard. It's pretty similar to how Mr. Pokolo does things.
Yeah, I know some people might use like traditional, but I think it's a lot easier to do it digital today anyway.
Oh yeah, it is. It definitely is. I mean, Toriyama himself moved more towards digital as time went on. Like if you look at like Dragon Ball Minus, you're not going to tell me he didn't do a lot of his work digitally on that, because you can just tell. I mean, it's understandable. I mean, technology is better. It's just going to make your job easier. Like there's literally no reason, unless you're some kind of snob that like looks down on people for using a digital medium, then there's no reason for you not to. I mean, don't get me wrong. Traditional does have a certain look to it, and I do feel like if you draw traditionally and then you scan your pages, it does have a look to it that's really pleasing. Like that's a lot of the reason Dragon Ball Infinity looks so good. But at the same time, I see people draw digitally and it looks great. So like it's really just on what you want to do. I know some people can draw better traditionally than they can digitally, so that that's got a lot to do with it too. It differs from person to person, but I don't see any reason not to use a digital medium.
Right. Like, everyone can just choose what they're best at. That's, like, the best way to go about things.
Right. I've seen some really good fan manga drawn digital. Like, just today, somebody showed me a page. It's great. And I know he drew it, you could tell. But, it's the new age. Just like I was saying, I'm really excited about, like, the era we live in. It feels really good to see all this work and everybody coming together and working together and being creative. And, we live in an awesome time in a lot of ways. I mean, we live in a crazy time in a lot of ways too, but I don't know, when I wake up every day and I see like all these artists working together and doing their thing, it just makes me feel better about people in general, because you see a lot of people are painted in a bad light a lot by the media and mainstream television and stuff like that, and I see all these people working together and having fun, and it makes me feel good about like the future of people. And I don't know, I feel like we live in a pretty amazing time.
Yeah, I think so as well, because even with the random stuff with YouTube and our things just going down, normally there's a way that you just get yourself right back up and work your way around to stick around.
YouTube, that's a whole different topic there.
Well, that's just how the grind is.
Right. I mean, I just noticed, the reason I haven't taken it into YouTube myself is that I've seen people struggle so much, and I have so little time as it is. I have a family. I have 2 kids that, rely on me, so it's hard for me to make time to even do anything, honestly. But you just see the struggle YouTubers go through, and it's just like, wow. It all seems so unnecessary.
Right. But I also see others that are kind of like yourself as families, like Dragon Ball Dad, for example. Like, he does really amazing content considering that he's willing to balance family and everything else, and this is what he chose they wanted to do.
Right, and that's awesome. It's awesome.
Like, he teaches his kids about different types of anime that are like age appropriate, like.
Oh, my daughter is a self-subscribed. She loves anime. She likes stuff I don't. She's like a ridiculous My Hero fan. She's like a new age anime fan. She loves it. But my son, he's a comic book guy. He can't get enough of like Spider-Man and stuff like that. They differ in that way.
And that's not a bad thing. It shows the differentiates that they've built upon, which is really nice.
My son loves Miles Morales. It's just like I think he's watched Into the Spider-Verse probably 20 times. No exaggeration. Like I'll walk into his room, he'll have his Switch, and be watching Into the Spider-Verse. I'm like, no.
Yeah. It's a great movie though. I don't
It is. I mean, I'm not trying to like. It's just funny to me that he watches it so, you know.
Like, it's funny, like, even though it's one of the lowest grossing movies, it's the most, like, talked about and, like, underrated. It's so interesting what happened to it.
Well, it's got a lot of depth to it. There's a lot of, like, details and, you know, a lot of funny moments. It's got a lot of mixture of different emotions and stuff like that. They did a really good job overall just making their audience happy in every aspect. If you wanted to laugh, if you wanted to like feel something, you were going to feel something. You know what I mean? Like if you went into the to see that movie with some kind of expectation, you were probably going to have that expectation fulfilled.
Well, it's interesting. It's like I saw it once, like theater alone. It's like this is a great movie, and then I thought about it myself. It's like I wanted to share the same experience with someone. So when it came back around my town, when I believe the Oscars or something was going on, some award thing, they had it back in theaters. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take my mom out there because I thought it'd be nice to like show her what this was, and she happened to enjoy it a little bit. She was surprised that I was willing to go out of my way to take her.
Right. It's awesome.
And I kind of like what they do with some movies because I believe it was Black Panther, they had a free showing during when it was being nominated. That was cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Okay. Yeah, that's another thing. We live in a pretty good time for movies too. Or we were. I don't know. Like it seems like we're kind of in a stale zone now after everything's been kind of concluded. We're just waiting on Star Wars now. But
yeah, I think it's nice when they do showings like that for award ceremonies because it gets people talking. You know, like they can tweet about it. They happen to see it that one time because sometimes you don't have like the income to go see it. You know.
Right.
Because it so happened with me, like, Black Panther at the time it was going, like, I had, like, nothing, and I couldn't see it. And it was quite interesting, because I ended up seeing all the other movies, because I happened to have something at the time, but that was one of those odd coincidences I never got to see. So when it came back in theater, I was like, man, I'm so sad I missed this movie when it first came out. But yeah, that was an interesting experience, seeing Infinity War, like, before like Black Panther or anything.
Yeah, that would be weird. I think the only movie I didn't see prior to Infinity War was the second Thor movie, and that's just because I heard it was so bad. Like my brother came home from the theater, he took his son to the theater to see it, and he came back and he was like, "Dude, just don't even go." He hated it, and which is funny because Thor Ragnarok's great. I love that movie.
Yeah, it's interesting with Thor 2. It's a weird mishmash. It has some good like Loki moments.
Well, here's the thing. Like I told you, I love to laugh.
Yeah.
Like that's my thing.
That movie's not funny though.
No, it's not. It's not at all. The movie is very edgy. It's very drama fueled, and
it's just unnecessarily too dark. That's
it's very anticlimactic too. It's very anticlimactic. Ragnarok is the exact opposite. It hit the nail on the head on every mark.
Yeah,
it made me laugh.
Ragnarok, I think even more than the first Thor movie, actually.
Yeah, it's my favorite. It really is. Like I love it. I love the whole thing. Of course, I was kind of upset that they, I guess you could say shortened Planet Hulk so much, like Gladiator Hulk. But at the same time, they can only do. They only have so much time. Like I know a lot of people are very upset with what they did with Hulk.
Well, I kind of wish that they might look back into that and consider doing Planet Hulk.
Yeah, that wouldn't be hard to do.
Because that could have just been a random planet. It could easily make sense.
And they could just have Thor, land after he's, conquered the planet. So yeah, that'd be very easy to do.
And then eventually Hulk goes back to Earth, and then you have all the other events that happen.
But just about every single one of my friends could not stand what they did with Hulk in Infinity War. Like Oh my gosh, hated it. And I wasn't like super upset about it because I understood why they did it the way they did. They can't give. It's like Dragon. You can't give everybody shine all the time. They gave Hulk shine the way they could. You know what I mean? He was designed to absorb radiation. He was destined for that role. The only other person I could see doing it would be Captain Marvel. Which honestly, when I first filmed and they were making that artificial gauntlet, I believed with all my heart that Captain Universe was going to be, or Captain Marvel was going to be who they had come in and wear the gauntlet. Like, I really thought that's the way it was going to go, like, the first time I watched the film. And then whenever they had Hulk use it, I was like, I get that he's, like, designed for that, basically, but it's just like, I don't know, I feel like they could have, like a small rewrite that wouldn't have hurt the movie too much. But then again, I'm not so upset about it that I would want it rewritten. I don't think it would have been too hard to have Captain Marvel come in, not die, lose her arm.
Yeah. I don't know. I could see something where like Hulk has to stop like a radioactive like weapon that could revert him back potentially, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah, that's one thing I was wondering about. He messed his hand up so bad. If he ever does become human again, is his hand going to be still messed up? Like, something I'm wondering about after I watched that movie.
Yeah. I also thought it was weird that Black Widow is supposed to come out during the 2020s season, which is weird. I felt like that could have came soon, in all honesty.
Oh, yeah, like, there's supposed to be, like, a timeline.
Like, it's supposed to be the last movie of, like, that phase, I think. Because it's a prequel movie, Like an origin story,
see, I haven't kept up with that much, so. That makes a lot of sense, though.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's a lot of potential. I guess we don't want them to death. They kind of already are with, streaming. Of course, I'm not really complaining about that. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's coming out on that I'm pretty excited about. Mandalorian.
Obviously, I'm excited for Marvel's What If series. That's
really
yeah, nice.
Man, I'm super into that. That and the Mandalorian are my biggest things, and the Obi-Wan show.
But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the interview here. If you want to learn more about him, I'll link his Twitter down in the description below, so that way you can go ask him any further questions you might be interested in, or you could ask in the comment section. I'll try to send it to him. And be sure to like, subscribe, all that jazz, and we'll see you all in the next video.
Hello everyone, Uncle Joker here. Make sure to subscribe to the society if you want to see more content, and use those opposable thumbs of yours to rate the video. If you want to be notified whenever I make a joke, hit that bell, because, YouTube isn't enough of a joke as it is. Until next time, toodaloo!